Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for hanging out and enduring our late start. I appreciate that. We have some technical issues, and that's just the nature of live production. So welcome to We Are Here Now, a collaborative community talk show focused on a variety of topics to start conversations and inspire insights. This show is focused on looking at the current world we live in through the lens of the Michael teachings. I'm your resident host and channel for the Michael entity. For more information on anything or anyone in this video, see the description for the video, and there'll be links there. Let me bring on the panel now. So let me introduce first Bobby. Oh, you're muted. We did this last time. I forgot to mention that. Make sure everybody's unmuted. See, good times, good times. Still can't hear you. What is going on? Well, let me introduce Ro.
Okay, can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, hello, beautiful Tilly. My name is Ro. I'm an artisan caste priest from CARY W, Entity 7. My pronouns are she, her for now. So happy to be here.
And let me introduce now Connor.
Greetings, TLE. I am Connor. I am a scholar caste sage, and I'm doing this on my phone today, so you might lose my face, but you'll still have my voice, and that's okay.
Yes. If worst comes to worst, we'll be turning off the video so the audio can come through clear, but I think we're good so far. Well, there's a frozen face now that's terrifying, but we'll just enjoy.
See, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. I'm still here, even though my face does sometimes freeze. I'm not having a stroke. I am doing fine.
This is going to be an excellent show. Oh my God. All right.
Okay.
We are down 2 people from today. Caitlin will not be here today. We will miss her. They are in the middle of a big move, and so had to really call a wellness day and be like, okay, let me focus on getting my stuff taken care of. So we will miss Caitlin today. And we were going to have Leela on as a guest panelist, but similar circumstances occurred. But I did want to announce that we are going to probably start having a guest panelist, like one position that rotates with people from the community. So watch out. I might be asking if you'd like to be on the show. All right. Did Bobby get back? Let's see. Nope.
Oh, no.
It's so strange. Everything was fine before we started.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yes. There's Bobby.
I wasn't the one with the technical issue before either.
I know. No, it wasn't. But we like to pass it around so that it's not just one person.
I don't know what happened. I didn't switch anything from the green room to now. I blame Daniel.
We'll figure it out. We'll roll with it.
So anyways, hey everyone. I'm Bobby. I'm a servercast artisan from C2E2.
And I'm Troy, a servercast sage from Cadre 1 Entity 2, and my pronouns are he, him. Anybody miss saying their pronouns?
Right, he, him, his.
Everybody else got theirs in? Yeah. Okay. I'm assuming that's a yes. I can't see. All right, well, let's move on into Michael Views the News. Oh, Lord. Okay, so first up in the news, on the other side of the globe from America, there has been let me put up my thing because I always forget. There has been an eruption of scandals in the Australian Parliament, causing a lot of outrage. These scandals have brought to light the white, male-dominated echelons of power and just how recklessly this power has been wielded. I'm not familiar with or knowledgeable enough to really speak eloquently about the situation arising there, but it is a very familiar scenario to we Americans, and many non-American Michael students are quite aware of what's happening in Australia. To keep our news segment and topics diverse and relevant, we want to include more global events to represent more of the community. To learn more about what is happening in Australia, please see the description notes of this episode where relevant links will be posted. Also, trigger warning, the subject matter that these string of scandals are about coming out of Australia involves allegations of rape, which the linked articles address carefully.
One of our lovely content coordinators, Shrita, who lives in Australia, had a few questions for us to ask Michael. Do these scandals reflect a shift to a mature soul age paradigm? And can we get a comment on Australia's current soul age and evolution over the future? And this is what Michael had to say. These scandals are not entertainment or mere nuisances in a long line of inconvenient drama. In a young soul paradigm, scandals such as these can tend to be viewed as exciting entertainment, with viewers completely removed from the emotional reality of these events. In a mature soul paradigm, events such as these bring to light serious matters that resonate with those who have unlocked and reconnected to their capacity for empathy. These scandals are transformative because those who are listening are ready to take action and make choices that are in response to the events. The events have happened and there is grief and wounding to address, but the masses are ready to do something with what happened and not allow it to fade into history.
And Michael continues with, Australian society has been long dominated by white male power and toxic masculinity. It has become a romanticized cornerstone of society and often proudly and playfully upheld as a kind of mascot for the country. But this is ending. Australia is slightly behind the United States in terms of its evolution as it shifts from young to mature. However, the shift in Australia may come at a faster pace because it is not a country that takes change lightly. Australia is brimming with stubbornness and arrogance. So when a critical mass of population decides that a change is in order, that change will come fairly swiftly and far less violently than in America. It also helps that a large portion of Australia, about 35%, has already been stable as mature souls for the past 100 years or so. In the past 20 years, the mature soul population has reached around 52%. We see Australia as officially a mature soul country by around 2030, but one of the greatest hurdles for Australia in its move into a mature soul paradigm is in the area of transparency and privacy. Much more needs to be exposed regarding official practices and policies, while much more individual control over privacy needs to be returned. And that's what Michael had to say about that.
Well, thank you, Troy. And as Australia works through its growing pains, a key contrast in the leadership has emerged in that part of the world between the Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, and New Zealand's Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, with Morrison being increasingly tone-deaf in his handling of the issues like the sex scandals, with his cold lack of empathy, while Jacinda shows great empathy and is recognized as a true people's leader. So, that said, we asked Michael for their overleaves. So we're going to start with New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, then we will follow with Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. So here we go. Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of Australia, is a second-level old server cast king with server casting from Entity 1 of Cadre 5. Now the personality overleaves. She is a spiritualist in passion mode with a goal of dominance, emotional centering, intellectual part, and chief features of impatience and self-deprecation. That's Jacinda Ardern. So now we're going to do Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who is a 6th level young scholar caste king from Entity 3 of Cadre 10. He is a pragmatist in reserved mode with a goal of discrimination, moving centered intellectual part with chief features of stubbornness and arrogance. To learn more about these leaders, see the links included in the description for this video.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. I'll see, look, I'm frozen again. That's how it goes.
All right, and now to the big news in America. The Chauvin verdict. Guilty as bleep. The former Minneapolis police officer who knelt on George Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes last year was found guilty to Tuesday of all 3 charges against him in one of the most consequential trials of the Black Lives Matter era. Derek Chauvin, 45, was convicted of second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. The jurors deliberated for more than 10 hours over 2 days before coming to their decision. That's it. Everyone probably knows enough about this that we don't have to cover it, but let's talk about our reactions and our thoughts and our feelings. I'll go first. One of my initial reactions, and something that something that I saw popping up over and over again throughout social media, is that I did have an immediate sense of relief and like a small sense of justice happening, but I don't really think or feel that it's like real justice, because as wonderful and as correct as I feel that the outcome of the trial was, the verdict, it's like it took George Floyd dying, it took him dying on camera, with video proof of the experience happening. It took the Black Lives Matter movement having to bring it to the forefront on so many different levels, so many different platforms. It took over a year. Like it shouldn't take all of these machinations in order for something as clear-cut as that to prevail. And so, whereas I do think it's moving in the right direction and it's the positive step forward, I can't really completely just label it as justice because of everything that had to happen in order for us to get to where we are.
Ro, what did you think from where you are in the world? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I think I mostly got the news from Twitter because here in Peru, there wasn't like huge news coverage of that event, but yeah, I feel like that sense of relief and, yes, justice was served. And for what I read, it took the jury 10 hours to decide all those charges when it was blatantly obvious it was murder. And, it's something so obvious, I think, for for people like us, but it takes like a lot for other people, and especially those unconscious, asleep ones that But I'm really happy and relieved that this means like a lot, and it's a big step. And I saw a picture of Jana Floyd holding a picture of her dad, and and they quoted her. She was saying, "My daddy changed the world."
Yeah. It's gonna make me cry. When I was live streaming on Twitch for my gaming, and so everybody was there, and I was talking with everybody, and Brian actually brought to my attention that they were about to read the verdict, because you were saying in 10 hours, it took them 10 hours. I thought they were going to be going like a whole week, because it's ridiculous how obvious it was, but how much they had to fight to make this justice happen. So I was really surprised. So we put it on the live stream and had live reactions to it. And of course I'm shocked. And I really didn't know how much I didn't expect justice until I was watching the verdict be read, and I was really shocked and moved to tears. And so, yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway from this, is how we've become so accustomed to it, just no justice being served whatsoever. We're going to circle back to this topic after we have our student spotlight, because I would like CARY to be a part of the conversation. We'll be introducing CARY later. But I wanted to hear from everybody what they thought when they first heard this. And Connor, what was your experience?
Yeah, for me, there was a distinct sigh of relief, and that was about it. There were certain parts of Philadelphia where, you know, there was horn honking, there were celebrations in the streets. My block was pretty quiet, and there was almost a somberness to it, because, I mean, if it hadn't been recorded, would we have arrived at the same juncture? Possibly,
Right.
but I don't know. Somehow I doubt it. It required that real-time live streaming to millions of devices, people watching it as it happened. If it hadn't been for that brave girl who stayed on the scene, who, by the way, ignored police threats to stay on the scene. The police were telling her to leave, the person who recorded, but she stayed there. And if it weren't for that visceral experience, I would like to think it would have come to the same verdict, but I'm less certain.
Yeah.
So knowing how much it took to get to such an obvious conclusion, that sort of sucks the celebratory feeling out of what should be a celebrated event.
That was a
And
great
yet,
way of describing it.
there must have been something culturally ripe in this moment, though, because I hesitate to say that it was just the video evidence that enabled the verdict to come out the way that it did, the way we had hoped it would, because almost 30 years ago, there was surveillance footage of Rodney King and what happened to him.
True.
So if it were just purely based on visual evidence of what happened, why didn't that verdict come out the way this one did? So I'm wondering, you know, it's almost been 3 decades since that atrocity happened. So culturally, from a societal standpoint, are we in a different place where people finally, you know, are viewing these for the hate crimes and for the atrocities and injustices that they are, and has that also fed into their decision making?
Well, I think it relates to what Michael said, what you were reading about Australia, where it says these events have happened and there is grief and wounding to address, but the masses are ready to do something with what happened and not allow it to fade into history. Because people have unlocked and reconnected to their capacity for empathy. I really, really think that it's indicative of the mature soul shift that's happening. That was a really good point you made about it. Like, things have been recorded in the past, many things actually, maybe not so like viscerally, like you said, but yeah, it was always so distant from everybody, and I don't understand why, but it was. Now it's not. Now people are like hitting them, even white folks.
Can we just share a few responses from the audience?
Yeah.
The Softest Revolution says, wasn't George Floyd, a magnetic server? That could be it too.
I think that played a big part in it.
Connie says it was the video plus the doctor, actually the string of doctors, all of the medical practitioners and the scientists pointing out exactly when George died. Christian says it felt like a start, but there is still more to be done.
Yeah.
Uma points out Black Lives Matter also had a lot to. That's true. We didn't have such a cultural response like Black Lives Matter, you know, when Rodney King happened. So the entire world responded, not just Black people. Maureen says Chauvin looked to her to be completely unconscious. I saw no reaction from him. He's one of the walking asleep.
Yeah.
Blame.
And that's why also in the past you can see the same thing happening. You know, there's evidence, but people are blind to that, are unconscious or asleep, are subjected to all those cheap features and imprinting, so they are not able to, empathize.
Yeah. They're feeling it. It's cross barriers. Well, we're going to circle back to this because I want to, it ties in with our main topic today, but let's go on to our topic talk now. All right. Well, our topic talks are designed to be conversation starters and ignite discussions and thoughts that go beyond this show. For today's topic talk, we are discussing the concept of agreements. With such profound events happening in the world, like the launch of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd's death, and the witnesses filming the murder and the verdict from the trial, it might be a good idea to visit the concept of agreements to see how they might apply to such historic events. How much of this was orchestrated before life begins, and how much of it is about fulfilling agreements made on an essence level? To begin answering some of these questions about agreements, I think it'd be helpful to share some bullet points about what agreements are and what they are not. Ro?
Thank you, Troy. First, let's define agreements. And agreements are defined in the Michael teachings as a flexible plan that is made between essences or personalities for fulfilling a mutual agenda. Agreements are made between essences, and agreements are made between personalities. Agreements are made before we are born, and agreements are made during life as we live it.
Agreements are non-binding. So they are called agreements for a reason. They are agreements. They can be changed, canceled, or rejected.
Also, agreements are not predictions. Michael often shares details about our agreements, which includes timeframes for fulfilling those agreements. But this is no different from looking at your own calendar of plans. Those plans can change.
Agreements are not guarantees. When Michael talks about agreements under basic plan, such as mate agreement, it is no guarantee of your being mated. Even if the agreement begins fulfillment, once the agreement starts, the rest is dependent upon the choices of the personalities involved. For example, two people sharing a mate agreement might meet up to fulfill this agreement, but decide they are not as compatible as they had hoped to be.
And then there goes that mate agreement. So there are 12 types of agreements. No matter the nuances or variations of description for any agreement, there are really only 12 types of agreements that can be made. All agreements can be sorted into the following types.
Love agreements. Agreements for friendship, dating, bonding, mating, etc. Knowledge agreements. Agreements to share information and insight. And we have compassion agreements. Agreements to offer or share support.
There are mentor agreements that are teaching and learning agreements. There are beauty agreements. These are agreements to help focus on the meaningful beauty, gratitude, and good, and amid the confusing, painful, or chaotic. Child agreements, agreements for literal children, or creative projects and collaborations.
Now, building on that, we also have humor agreements to bring levity and lighter perspectives. Discipline agreements to help improve the capacity for making choices. Anchor agreements to commit, stick around, endure, to be available.
And then the last three are the healer agreements, which are agreements to give or receive healing. Enlightenment agreements, agreements to help make sense of an experience or life in general. And then finally, muse agreements, agreements to inspire or to be inspired. No matter how our agreements are described by Michael, they fall into one of these types of agreements.
So when historic events happen, like with George Floyd, his murder, the rise of Black Lives Matter, Chauvin's trial, the witnesses recording the events and testifying with such emotional clarity, was all of this orchestrated by essences behind the scenes through agreements and played out like some cosmic lesson on the world stage for all of us to learn?
No! The short answer is no.
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 It does not work like that.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. So despite what many New Age and religious theories would say, no. These events are not planned or orchestrated. There may be many agreements in place being negotiated and fulfilled, but Michael says that everything that comes out of a historic event is the result of choices. No one agrees to be murdered. No one agrees to witness a murder. No one agrees to sacrifice themselves so the masses can learn a lesson.
When historic events like this happen, it is not the agreements that were in place before the events took place that shape how the event becomes historic. It is the agreements that are created and fulfilled in the aftermath of such events that matter.
All right, so here is Michael's comment on the event, on George Floyd's murder. Michael's words. George Floyd was living his life. He had other plans. He was struggling with conditions in life that interfered greatly with how well he could live his life and fulfill his own plans and agreements. The arrest, murder, and trial were not on George's agenda or his essence that day. This event was not unusual, uncommon, or unfamiliar. Other events such as these have been documented and recorded and publicly shared. What made this particular event historic and pivotal is that people made choices and took actions in response to the event that made a difference. Agreements by the millions were born of this event, but they were not there before the event.
Michael continues, we can break down and delineate this event in terms of karma, agreements, and paradigm shifts. But what will always matter most is that people make choices and take actions that commit to making a difference. There are no guarantees. History often repeats itself because not enough people make the choice or take the actions that commit to making a difference. This time, a difference was made, and the choices and actions and agreements that come next are as important as those that came before.
So do agreements change the world by orchestrating horrific historic events on a world stage that teach us all a lesson? No, not at all. But what we agree to do together as a result of horrific events makes all of the difference in the world. What panel, what do you think of Michael's comments about the situation and agreements and how they all fit together? If you have any comments. No?
Sorry, no.
Yeah, it definitely resonated.
It's emotional.
Can you, hello?
Are you crying?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Is Bobby crying?
I'm on the verge.
I don't know what's happening, so I'm just going to talk. Yeah, so
I was getting choked up too. It makes me sad because people are just living their lives. Fucking get interrupted by an asshole. And then what we do with that makes all the difference in the world. And I'm glad that we're doing something this time. But let's move on to bring CARY onto the show. But I want to circle back to this. Can
we let Connor speak though? Connor was trying to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Connor. Go ahead.
No, yeah, something went weird with my mic, but it definitely rang. In fact, the very first question I ever asked Michael was about an incident where I got jumped in an alleyway and beaten up. And I don't want to make this about me, but I asked Michael the same thing. Why did this happen? What sort of lesson was trying to be learned? And they said, there's just scathing in the world. Nothing gets orchestrated. Nothing gets planned. Any lessons that you may learn are extracted from the efforts to heal and process after an event, but it's never a preordained plan. So that's absolutely true.
That's very rare to hear in the New Age community and in the religious community, where it's like, no, shit happens, and what we do with what happens matters. We don't plan these horrible things. We don't get sick because there's not some like cosmic deserving. It's not a matter of deserving or being taught a lesson or anything like that. I really like that about the Michael teachings because it's never been about that. There's been such an emphasis
punishment or something. I feel it's a very liberating take.
I really like that because that would defeat the whole point of their teaching us about choice and what choice plays into this. And sometimes we don't have a choice, and that has to be acknowledged in order for us to actually have power when we do have choice.
Yeah.
So
along that line, Delphi says, also, no one agrees to sacrifice themselves or murdered is so important. A lot of martyrs need to hear this.
Yes. All right. Well, let's. Go ahead.
But
Connor.
it would be interesting to explore further eventually. how they see, because it definitely made a difference, and I'm curious to know more about how. Perhaps we may have seen some of that difference with the election results in 2020, but it would be more than that.
You mean why like this pattern has a momentum at all?
No, I mean the fact that they said the response to this event changed the future. They said that in a different exchange, one of the energy reports, or an Ask Michael. I forget exactly where, but they said the response to George Floyd's murder literally changed the future.
Well, I can see that, because if we kept down the other track, because I could feel in the moment the verdict was reading, like this sense of like, we're going in this future or that future. One or the other. Change is going to happen, but it's going to be painful, more painful in one direction. All right. Well, I would like to move on to our student spotlights. We can bring CARY into the conversation. So all right, CARY is an old priest caste warrior who has worked for social justice organizations for over 15 years, taking up the causes of feminism, LGBTQ rights, racial equality, and size acceptance. Her personal passions include science fiction books, shows and movies, anime, manga, tabletop gaming, learning new languages, knitting, and crochet. Welcome, CARY.
Hello.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, good. And I want to talk about all the stuff we've already talked about, but I want to talk about you first, and then we'll move into the bigger topics. Okay. So, do you remember when you first discovered the Michael teachings?
Yes. It was, I don't know, maybe 2013, somewhere around then. It was a coworker at work had mentioned that her mom was getting a Michael reading. And I was like, oh, what's that? So she started telling me about it. And the more she talked about it, the more interested I became. And that's how I got into the Michael teachings.
Oh, wow. Do you still know that person?
We're acquaintances at this point.
Do you know who
she lives in a different country.
Oh, do you know who the channel was? You don't have to name it, but do you know? I mean, you can name if you want.
It was a woman. I can't remember the woman's name.
Wow, interesting. She was in this country at the time, though?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it makes me curious. That's really cool. I always like to hear how that stuff happened. And then how did we first meet? Because I'm having trouble remembering exactly when. It feels like you've always been in my life.
Right? I was trying to remember too, and I think it was probably you were offering a live channeling at your house, and I probably went.
I think it was in this apartment, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Right, because I remember I said something about your orange, your orange walls.
She had a lot to say.
It was very neat. It was very neon, Troy. It was a little bit painful.
Well, you're not sitting in this room. This is my office.
That's right. It's your office.
Wait, you were in the living room where it was gray, like everything.
Right, but at your office, it was either neon green or it was some neon color that was grating on my eyes.
Wait, maybe it wasn't this apartment then.
It was. That's the only apartment I've ever seen.
Oh, okay.
Seen you in.
Because I lived in the same building.
No, it was that apartment.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Shaniqua here that night too?
Probably.
And Karen, yeah. Well,
it was
good
a bunch
times.
Of people.
It was fun. Those are good times.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about your interest in activism. I mean, obviously, sometimes when we take up causes, they're very personal and related to us. But I'm really interested in why you've included LGBTQ causes as well.
Well, so I'm bisexual.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, so that's
okay. Done.
Yeah. And where I am now, they had an opening. I work in the development department. So it was good for me, like, to transition from going from feminism to LGBTQ, an LGBTQ organization. It just flowed into, because where I was, there were a lot of lesbians working there.
Oh, okay.
And so it was just a natural transition.
Now, having approached all these different causes, do you find some of them, like, do you find you putting them in tiers of emergency, I guess, or necessity for addressing? Do you ever feel like you have to prioritize? Or are they all interconnected?
I used to feel that way. And whatever was prioritized was the thing that was affecting me most. But as I've gotten older, like it, you know, they are interconnected, and intersectionality is very important, especially if you live on the verge of multiple intersections.
Yeah.
What becomes important is the thing that's right in front of you at the moment. And so often it's size for me, just because I have to be in this body every day and those things come up. Like I've been told to my face, I'm not going to hire you because you're fat. I haven't been told I'm not going to hire you because you're Black. So in that moment, that was important to me. I've been stopped by police, you know, for doing nothing. So in that moment, being Black was important to me then. It's all interconnected.
Can you explain, just for anybody who's watching who might not know, what intersectionality is?
So intersectionality is when you have multiple identities and they all inform each other. So I am bi, I am a woman, I am Black, I am fat. Those are 4 identities that often cross. And I can't be Black without being a woman. I can't be bi without being Black. Like those things all work together. And so often when you talk about social justice issues and intersectionality, you kind of have to be thinking about how this action that we're going to undertake will affect people who identify with other identities that might also be affected. Like someone is Black and trans,
Right.
You know, those things work together.
What are there, I don't know how much you can talk about, but are there any projects or events or educational things that are going on now that
So right now in the LGBTQ community, the Equality Act is something that we're all thinking about and focusing on and paying attention to, because it would give LGBTQ people federal protections against discrimination. And so that's something that would be helpful, not just for LGBTQ people, but people who also live on those intersections.
Yeah.
So it's important.
When is that? What's happening with that, by the way?
So the House already passed this act. It's currently in the Senate, and the Senate has to vote on it. I'm not sure for the timeline for when the Senate will make that decision, but that's
because it seems like
now.
It's been going. This is a long process, right?
It's a very long process. This is not the first time that the Equality Act has been introduced into the House of Representatives.
Now, what can we do as Americans to make a difference individually?
As far as the Equality Act is concerned?
Yeah.
You can call your senators.
Okay.
You can educate yourselves more about the legal ramifications of it, what is actually in the bill. If you go to the website for the U.S. Congress or the U.S. Senate, it will have the list of all the bills that are currently sitting in the Senate.
Okay.
On the Senate floor. Mm-hmm.
We're going to make sure those links are in the description when we post the video live. And also include a link. I'm sure there's some process for determining your local senators or how to contact your senators, right?
Yes. You can go to ballotpedia.com to find out who your local senators are. You can also probably find that information on the Senate's website, the official Senate website.
Okay.
Well, you put in your state or your zip code and it'll tell you.
Well, you're amazing. Thank you for being a part of that, for all those causes that you work for, because you're fierce. But
thank you. I think
before we get into the heavier stuff, circling back to the topics, what makes you love anime and animation so much?
Oh my God. Okay. First of all, I'm learning Japanese. And
Right.
so watching anime is helping me learn Japanese. I realized that Japanese in anime is not necessarily the Japanese that would be spoken by a regular person, but it's still helpful. I learn new words all the time. I had to watch like 200 episodes of One Piece before I learned the word for pirate. Don't like but it's also I enjoy the stories. The stories are just really good, and the art is really good. And I've always loved cartoons, so anime is just an extension of that.
Oh, you actually have inspired me to check out stuff that I never would have known about or been interested in. So thank you for that influence.
You're welcome. If you want more recommendations, hit me up.
Oh yeah, I have some follow-ups to ask you about too.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what were your reactions to the Chauvin verdict?
So I hadn't been following the trial. I hadn't been following the news. It was just overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
It's just, I didn't watch the video where the world watched him die. I couldn't do it. But so I had very low expectations for the verdict. I wasn't expecting him to be charged, to be guilty. And I had to talk to my cousin, who's a lawyer. She said something really interesting, and I was like, oh, duh. I didn't think the video evidence was going to matter because it has never mattered. What's the point of introducing it if he's just going to get off scot-free? But then the difference is that in those other videos and those other trials, the officer involved was making a snap decision, like in the moment, and that's why they got off.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And in this time, there was a video for 9 minutes. 9 minutes. That's what made the difference. That's why he was charged as guilty, because here was video evidence, and then you had all of these people to give testimony to talk about the exact moment that George Floyd died. Like, no one could say this didn't happen, or we don't know how to interpret it, because he was doing it for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And so when the verdict came that he was guilty, on the one hand, I was like, great, finally someone, like, justice is actually served. But at the same time, it's bittersweet because this is going to happen again. And of course, what happens a day later? Someone else gets shot. And is that cop going to go free? Probably so. So for the family, this is great. For the Black community as a whole, this is good, but it's just like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't know how to feel about it. Like, yes, but also,
is this the kind of thing where obviously this is an opportunity that we could keep in momentum and defund, abolish, reform the police, but we have to just keep the momentum going, and if it's not kept up, it's just going to fade away again. So it's like you're waiting to see what comes next before you can kind of get a sense of, I don't know, success, I guess is the right word.
Well, from
change,
and the kind of change that needs to happen has to come from the police departments themselves. The criminal justice system has to be overhauled, and all of the people with power are the ones who are the only ones who can really implement those changes. The public, I mean, we can protest, we can make our feelings known, we can tell our politicians this is what we want, but it really is up to the police officers and the judges and all the people involved to really make those changes happen. And they have to be willing. And if they are not willing, there's no, this is just going to keep happening. And I do understand that there were a lot of police officers who felt that Chauvin went overboard, and that it was good to expose this aspect of policing, which it is, but they gotta take the reins now and keep going. Don't just use code blue. the blue code as
yeah.
like the way to continue, because it's not.
Oh no.
Not.
At least you froze with a beautiful pose. Oh, there you're back. you're breaking up.
Oh no. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back. Well, we're going to keep
Okay.
fighting. We're going to keep, I mean, that's what else can we do? And I think the more people that are on board, and that seems to be the case across the board for all marginalized communities, is that the intersectionality is being recognized. More white people are waking up. There's just a lot more force behind change right now than I've seen in my life. Even on terms of animal rights, it's like that's extremely low on people's priorities, and there's still more of that happening. So human rights, it feels like, is getting some much needed energy that hasn't been around for a long time.
And that would be great. I mean, I'm hopeful that humanity can change, but I'm also realistic, knowing that it's not going to happen in my lifetime. You know.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very, very, very slow progression, but that doesn't mean that we don't continue to work on the issues.
Yeah.
And solving the problems.
Well, let's bring back the panel and let's take questions and comments from viewers and spend some time with our audience. Whoops, camera's back too.
Can I share some CARY love from the audience members?
Yes, please
Yay!
do.
I was saying how much I was happy to see CARY, and then Song says, I can feel CARY's compassion behind the screen.
Oh.
And then let's see, Zara, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Zara says, oh my gosh, I love anime too. And CARY, I don't know if you follow the One Piece manga, but they're about to celebrate their 1000th issue.
I haven't read the manga, but I do know about that.
1000.
I know, it's crazy.
Wow.
It's insane.
Who?
Absolutely. The manga One Piece. She watches the anime show One Piece about the pirates. It's based on the manga, and the manga come out with its
1000th chapter.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's insane.
How many years has that been?
Since like 2006.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. And then also just wanted to share Mastering Life's Journey. William says, I can feel the passions. I think he was referring to you, CARY, like all of the causes that you champion. And then Maureen wanted to say, when you were both talking about the George Floyd case, I used the word boost after the verdict of guilty, and out of that, we need to keep up the momentum. It's on all of us.
Yes.
So, that's it.
Yeah, I felt a lot of relief, and I did feel a boost as well. That's a good word for it. And then I was like, it was so strange. It was probably within the hour, I was like, well, what next? Like we can't celebrate. Like there's more to do. This is not, I couldn't get into the mood that I wanted to feel good about it because I couldn't. I was just like, this shouldn't be, why are we in a position that we're celebrating a verdict that should have been like a no-brainer from the very first start? It's crazy.
Yeah, that's why I struggle with it being defined as true, like justice being served. You know?
Yeah. It's justice for the family, for the movement as a whole. It's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Maureen poses an interesting question. So, is there a connection between George Floyd and Darnella Frazier? She was the teenager who recorded George Floyd's death.
Well, in metaphysical terms, I'm going to assume there's a connection among all of them involved. I didn't go there with my questions with Michael because I really wanted to keep from it being, oh shoot. Can you get that, Bobby? Disruptions. I didn't want to get too involved in like the metaphysical mechanics of it because I feel like is interesting to know. And we can explore that in the community, but I also didn't want it to become one of those things where it's like, oh, they had agreements to do this. This is something they orchestrated. This is because of, I wanted to ask Michael questions that emphasize what our part is in the solution and how to understand it from that perspective, which reminds me, I wanted to ask CARY what she thought of that information about how those agreements played in. Were you able to hear that?
Most of it.
What did you think? Do you think that it, because I know you have some criticisms of the Michael teachings or teachings in general, and I'm always curious what your opinion is about how the metaphysical mechanics fit into such real life scenarios like that.
Yeah, in general, I feel like, the metaphysical aspect isn't what we should turn to first.
Right.
It's like a backup. I'm sorry, my mom walked in when you were talking about I heard some of it. What did Michael say about the agreements?
They basically said that there were no agreements for this to happen. There was no plan. But what the agreements are born out of what happened and what we do with what happened afterwards. That's where the emphasis on the mechanics, the metaphysical mechanics, make the most sense and are the most practical, because no one plans this stuff.
Right. And I agree with that, because why would you? It makes no sense.
No.
and I think it just, the odds, what am I trying to say? The statistics, the odds, the probability of you being a Black person and being stopped by a police officer for no reason is high. Yeah. So it could have been anyone. Yeah. It just that day it happened to be George Floyd. I've been stopped because I was sitting on the stoop reading a book in a white neighborhood. A cop car rolled up on me. I was 15 years old. Like, why is a cop trying to stop me when I'm reading a book? I wasn't doing anything, but I was a Black person in a white neighborhood. You know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't matter, about those kinds of metaphysical things. It's just in the physical plane. It's going to happen a lot in this country.
Yeah.
So
the agreements that came out of it, whether metaphysical or literally negotiated in person, are afterwards is what matters most. Not like you weren't agreeing to sit on that stoop and like, oh, I'm over here, policeman, come over and bring me that experience. It's like, no, people bump into each other and we have a lot to deal with in navigating. Oh, exactly. I forgot to put that up this. So I was curious because it matters to me that the Michael teaching is practical and useful for everyone and in most human experiences, because otherwise it's useless to me.
And I tend to think that imprinting is what I would start thinking about first. What culture do we live in? How are we raised? What are we raised to believe? And after I take those things into consideration, then I would start thinking about things from a Michael perspective. And most of the time, the answers, for me, the answers come through just thinking about sociology. Like, this is the culture you live in. This is what you were raised to believe. But then you have choices about how you react to those things, But most of the time, it's probably imprinting is the answer.
Yeah. Do you have a question like that you would ask of this situation or in general that we can maybe get to post in the community?
My questions are always along the lines of how can people of color, how can people who are the victims of discrimination not just cope with what happens, but what can we do to speed change along without having to sacrifice ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Okay.
yes, I want you to know how racism works, but I don't want to have to be the one to explain it to you.
Yeah.
Because then I get re-traumatized if I have to do that.
Right.
So having to cope with that, like, I would like to know what Michael has to say about that. Yeah.
I'm going to put that in my create a post for that and see what we get about that. And I might follow up with you to get it more, clear, make sure the question's worded correctly. But any comments or questions from the viewers?
Yeah, there are a couple here, all relating back to the trial, but Connie mentions, I struggled with it too. This is the verdict, and feeling good about it. I felt like I should have been happy, but there was just relief and sadness that it was even necessary. It should never have happened, and George Floyd should still be alive.
Yeah.
Mastering Life's Journey says, it is winning one battle of many in the war of equality. It is hard to say, yes, we won, justice served.
Yeah.
And Maureen notes, it is happening, change is happening. It just seems that we aren't there yet. This is what change looks like when you are in the middle of it.
And we're constantly in the middle of it. I mean, if you compare where we are to where we have been, change is happening, but there's this thread of persistence that I can't even imagine what life will be like when it's just gone. Like, is that possible? Like, will there always be racist and homophobic and did I say racist? Racist and homophobic and sexist people? I mean, will that always be a thing, or will there be some weird way of thinking that we look back on and be like, how did people function? Like, what were they doing? I really curious what that world looks like.
Delphi says, there's a lot more to be explored here in terms of how much risk is sensible to take when it comes to advancing social change. Just thinking of the transcendental souls that get murdered like Gandhi.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at when there's a big voice that comes out that really pushes for it, it gets shut down. And that's...
Well, and like what Carrie was saying a second ago, when she was saying, I can't completely relate, so I take her at her word, but I can only imagine when you're a person in that position, especially right now, people of color, like, you can't always be the one, like, proving the point or setting the example to convince others that this is right? You can't make your life that. And how do we get other people on board who may not immediately identify in terms of their own personal lives? It's just about how do we broaden their sphere of compassion, their sphere of empathy. Just because it's not happening immediately to them doesn't mean it's not worth them embracing the cause or changing their POV on it. It can't always be the people, the minority. Right now there's a lot of violence towards Asian Americans and Asians across the world, but the people that are being suppressed or oppressed can't always be the ones that bring about the change or convince the majority to bring about that change. So how do we open up those spheres of compassion and empathy for the majority population?
Well,
exactly.
Do you think that's, I mean, slipping into metaphysical concepts, do you think that's what's changed? Is that if there's any validity to reincarnation, that we store these memories in us, and regardless of where we are in our current life, that adds to our capacity for compassion and empathy for other people? Because it feels like if reincarnation is valid and we're evolving on that level, that the older we get in soul age, the more we tap into that, so that we don't have to have shared those experiences. We don't have to be explained why it hurts. We just can see it and care. Do you think that that's what contributes to it, to why people are caring more about issues and things that they never did before, or that they thought they could ignore before? Do you think it's because of soul age, or something more practical like the internet?
Well,
or both.
If it's heavily or most heavily based on soul age, that is such a slower moving progression, isn't it? Than something like pop culture or the internet or celebrities taking a stance, because that seems to create more immediate converts. I don't know. I don't know if we can wait for Soul Age to get to mature in Old Soul,
No, I don't mean wait for it. I meant do you think that's behind the mechanics behind more people getting behind causes that they normally weren't behind before? Do you think it's partially because of that at least? Or is it because the internet and the world is smaller? Now we're bombarded with issues from around the world and from other people that we never had contact with before. But then again, that kind of ties into the mature soul paradigm too. So whether it's looked at from a practical perspective or a reincarnational perspective, the fact that we are exposed to more people more constantly, I think that makes a huge difference, like it does in cities versus rural areas where people can live their lives in a bubble versus in a city where you have to cross paths with people. I think the internet is like a way for people to learn about the lives of other people they normally wouldn't have. So maybe that contributes to it.
And to remember faster, I think, because there are many mature souls and older souls that through internet, they are able to remember, the compassion, the love, and they wake up, earlier in their lifetime. For example, Generation C and millennials, for example. So I think
it could also be the aspect of the internet, because you can be in the internet and still be in a bubble. You can be in your little internet bubble.
Good point.
But I do think that tools like Facebook and technology like your smartphone that lets you video call someone across the planet, I think the capacity for communication has increased. And if we can communicate with each other, we can share ideas and exchange information a lot faster than we used to be able to, like even 30 years ago.
Right.
So I think that probably has to do with it too.
Yeah. Christian says, I think it's a combination of both. Mastering Life's Journey says, I think it is mixed with Soul Age and all the media attention, the internet, all the things you have mentioned. Our knowledge has grown so much. And then Connie says, I think people get behind causes because it becomes fashionable to do so. At least some of them. There's the societal pressure.
Yeah, some of them they do. That's why it's problematic when celebrities get involved, because it's like very helpful, but also can create that kind of thing where it's like a superficial, be on board thing. But I also think, piggybacking on all this about the internet and the world being smaller, we also have more information about what to do. Because in the past, we might have been able to recognize something was wrong, but we didn't know what to do. We didn't have the educational resources or the resources to be able to say, well, what can I do? How can I help? And so I think that helps a lot too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And there's so many websites for any cause that you can think of that will be an information aggregator that'll tell you this is what you can do to help, no matter where you are economically or socially. These are deep questions, y'all.
You want to get back on the anime? Let's talk about Rick and Morty.
No, I mean, I was just thinking it's 4:00 on a Saturday, and this is what we're talking about. That's dope.
Well, let's lighten the mood then. Anybody have anything funny to share? You like games, Carrie? Have you played Trevor Saves the Universe?
I have not played. Is this a tabletop game or a video game?
Video game.
I don't play as many video games as I do tabletop games. I have video games sitting in my Steam account that I still have not finished. I may never finish them. I mean, Luxuria Suburbia is really relaxing, but it's not like a game. It's just like
when we can have you over again, we have tons of tabletop games. I would love to play with you.
Oh, I can bring a million of them. I just bought Forbidden Desert, which is a classic cooperation game.
Ooh.
And I haven't even opened it yet. So.
Ooh.
And I do have Rick and Morty tabletop games. I feel like I have them.
Holy moly, I did not know that.
Everyone loves It's the one where the parasites are stuck in the house and they got to kill off the parasites. They made a game from that episode, and it's everyone's favorite game.
Oh wow!
It comes out every game night.
Oh my god, I'm gonna have to look it up because I did not know that existed. See what I mean? Yeah. Always educating me.
Well, next time we're together, we'll have game night.
All right. Yeah. Well, everybody, I don't know if it's necessary for us to have a after overtime because the chat's been pretty quiet for today, so I don't know if we need it, but we should probably wrap up so everybody can get on with their day and have a nice weekend and everybody can relax. And thank you to everybody for rolling with the technical issues. Thank you, Carrie, for being on the show. If we do, we'll stick around for about 5 minutes and see if people want to still talk. So anybody who wants to stay, stick around for after the credits, but we're going to roll the credits and say goodbye to everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen.
I love seeing that little lineup of pictures. Our little crew. So we'll stick around here for see if there are any more questions, but if not, everybody can go. And Amanda, thank you for running things. You do not have to stick around if you would like to take a break and be done with your duties here.
Where is Amanda?
She's there. She's invisible.
She's invisible right now. No, I think she signed off already.
No, she's the.
Well, no, I see her now.
Yeah, she's there. Thank you, all of you viewers.
Okay. Oh wait, are we still live, or did you guys
we're live
already?
No, we're live.
You're live.
Yes.
Oh, oops.
We're sticking around for see if there were any Q&As because sometimes people want to talk more. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, thanks.
Well, I do want to thank you
go.
for having me on, and it was really great discussion, and some really interesting questions got brought up during the discussion, and I'm eager to hear the answers.
You mean like in follow-ups and future conversations with Michael? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really want these episodes to be conversation starters. Like we can't cover everything, and I don't have all the answers, but I can like kind of point to things happening in the world with this show and point people to resources, and also just get some insight from Michael from a very practical angle as best I can. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that makes a difference for some people.
Yeah, I'm sure that it does.
I hope so. Well, I don't see much coming in from the chat, so if we want to wrap up here, we can. Everybody can have a lovely rest of the day.
Yeah, it shows there are 9 viewers still, but there are no additional comments are coming in.
Yeah, we'll just say goodbye to everybody then, so we can have our the rest of the day. I think we covered a lot. We're done.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you, everybody.
See you, Carrie, in person.
Love you, Amanda. Love you, Brian.
Thank you,
Love you,
Manda. Thank you,
Delphi.
Brian, Delphi, Shweta.
Wait.
Shweta.
Bobby, Troy, are you vaccinated?
Yes, I am.
Fully?
I am.
I get my second vaccination on May 8th.
Okay.
So by the middle of May, I'll be done.
I got both my shots already. I'm good. So
yeah.
You're good?
Yeah.
All right.
After mid-May, we can all hang out again.
Yay.
Yeah, it's coming up soon where at least the people that we know have been strict and are fully vaccinated, I feel more comfortable like getting together in a little pod.
Right.
I don't need to go out and about and stuff, but it would be really nice to, have you over on the rooftop or just play a board game or something like that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We can
have a Michael session.
We don't need that.
Oh, okay.
It's fine, but we shouldn't need that to get together.
Oh,
but,
no. I'm just offering it.
We could have our own brunch. I miss
brunch
very much.
Oh, you came to one I had before. Just one. I think I hosted it. Remember when I made that French toast stuff? Yeah.
Uh-huh. See, that's the best part about living in New York City. Brunch, man.
I know, right?
and we haven't had it for a year.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to take us off the air. Another goodbye to everybody who's watching. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you to all the Patreon members. And don't forget to check the description in the video that'll be posted live or available live. And I'll update it with the links from CARY and whatever else I forgot. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.